But I never do. Every time I try it on, it's sort of
I think we'll call this meeting to order. That is on. So we're starting early at 6 o'clock because for this public hearing. Two of our counselors haven't arrived yet. I don't know if I think in one case we knew he was going to be late because of the distance to travel. And in Peter's case, I'm not sure. But if you're not here as a counselor for the public hearing, then you can't vote later on the second reading. That's the requirement. You have to be here for the public hearing. And I don't know what counts when we get a part of if somebody arrives partway through. But we'll deal with that, I guess, when it happens. I want to start by the acknowledgement, land acknowledgement. So I acknowledge that we are on the ancestral territories of the Mi'kmaqui people. And we want to thank the current members of the Mi'kmaqui family for their ancestors sharing these beautiful lands in Pictou County with our ancestors, whether they came 400 years ago or 4 years ago. We are all treaty people. So we'll move right along to our public hearing. And we have just one registered speaker here tonight, and that is Spencer Morgan from Central West River. So Spencer's going to address council with some issues, and I'll let you go ahead, Spencer, and take a seat up here. I hope the mic is operational there.
Thank you. Good evening, council, staff, and committee members. Thank you for requesting public comments. I'm here to object to the elimination of the shoreline zone that was recommended by Upland as a standard feature of the land use bylaw. I feel like this is a lost opportunity that will be difficult to reclaim. Municipal coastal protection will not protect our many inland lakes, rivers, brooks, and springs from unwanted development, so inland shoreline protection must be included in the land use bylaw. Our rivers absolutely need our protection and should be recognized as shoreline zones to preserve our waterfront neighborhoods from commercial development. Our roadside freshwater springs are also highly valuable community assets, often with long lines, and these deserve protection from new businesses that might not understand their value on paper, or worse, understand it and want it from themselves. These bylaws are meant to empower municipalities to protect our lands and communities from unpredictable development as Nova Scotia's population grows, possibly more than doubling in number in a very short time. Pictou County is a special place to live, and most likely a lot of new residents and businesses are going to figure that out and move here. In preparation for this planned growth boom, these bylaws create flexible guidelines to direct most new housing and commercial development to where it will be best suited for the residents of Pictou County. These guidelines should indicate to new residents and business owners the preferences of the community, such as protecting our inland shorelines from non-recommended commercial development. But all existing uses of private property are automatically allowed under the bylaw, so current residents of Pictou County can go on doing what we do. With shoreline zoning, our vibrant inland waters that we live on, fish in, and drink from would be recognized as valuable and protected from a long list of new commercial development that would otherwise be allowed if zoned as rural general. As a matter of fact, there are 38 specific businesses that would be allowed on shoreline properties, some less appropriate than others, including automobile fueling, repair, and washing, banks and financial institutions, and this is undefined in the bylaw, so I'm not sure if this includes crypto mining, office buildings, which seems vague with no size limits mentioned in the definitions, outdoor shooting ranges, forestry, workshops, service and repair shops, retail lumber and home improvement yards, building supply and equipment depots, garden and nursery sales and supplies, hobby and industrial livestock farms, abattoirs, farm machinery sales and service, heavy equipment repair, light industrial uses, recycling depots, trucking and shipping yards, warehousing, parking lots, and with a developer's agreement, scrap yards and heavy and hazardous industrial uses will also be permitted on our shorelines. Why would we invite all of these industries to build on our unprotected springs and rivers? Shouldn't a few more of these industries require a developer's agreement to build on our shorelines? To make the shoreline zone less restrictive and more agreeable, Council could increase the allowed residences per lot from 2 to 4 to match the general zone for housing. If it's applied equally and fairly to all shoreline properties, exceptions or setbacks can be carved out as needed after the fact. Council could even make rezoning applications free for the first 5 years to encourage property owners to participate and help make things right. All of these public hearings have only had letters and speakers of support for broadly implementing a shoreline zone with no voices of opposition other than Council. So I'm here to object and add my voice to the many who feel angry and betrayed that not enough is being done to protect our neighborhoods or environment at the federal, provincial, or municipal levels. This excellent opportunity is about to be abandoned unless we step up. Local businesses should add value for Pictou County residents, not take away. Fixing climate change requires a million baby steps, but we have to choose to take them. This is important planning for the future, and Pictou County of tomorrow is being shaped as Council decides today. Thank you very much.
I hope you heard some of that. Anyway, so I'm going to open the floor now for questions of clarification because you bring up some important points. And before we ask for the first questions, I'm going to ask, and I'm sorry, Brian, what's the name from Upland? Paul. Perhaps you have the information. I know somewhere along this process, and there's been a lot of meetings, there was some changes made to our rivers from where there was just two protected to some degree first to apply to all of our main rivers and whatnot. Do you have what that clarification, or can you clarify what protection there is on our rivers right now?
Yes, so there is for inland. Oh, sorry. Oh, I can hear you. Yeah, look for online.
Yeah. I'll try it.
Yes, so there is a 15-meter setback from all watercourses in the municipality, and there was a little bit of a change over course of time through the various stages of the draft. What's considered a watercourse, for that matter? It started off with a very wide definition, where pretty much any sort of all sorts of brooks, even if it's not clear if they carry water or not, would be included. It went from that to just watercourses that are showing, I believe, on a provincial map. And finally, well, that turned out to be, a little too lenient. Like, there were some cases where there were concerns with regard to building over a certain watercourse. So we went back to something that was similar to the first draft. However, it's not as wide in terms of types of watercourses that are included as the first round of drafts that we produced, but it's still any watercourse that actively carries water is still now included in that definition.
And what is the difference between the protection that's in that and what Mr. Morgan's asking for? Like, it's not the same as shoreline protection. So what is the protection you're saying from 50 meters back from the waterway?
15, yeah. So we have two types of shorelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are protected in various ways through the land use bylaw proposal. Inland waterways are protected with a buffer of 15 meters.
50 meters.
15, 1-5, right? And coastal shorelines, there are restrictions on development within 30 meters. There are, if you can prove, a certain elevation, vertical elevation above that watercourse or water body, there are some exemptions, and this buffer can be reduced. So that is the set of rules that we have in the draft land use bylaw. What the speaker at the public hearing is, I think, proposing or asking for is for the shoreline zone to be brought back and applied to some inland watercourses. This is what I understand.
Yes.
So the difference would be the 30 meters for the shoreline protected versus 15 meters for the inland waterways.
Yeah, so I think what is being asked, so right now these are general requirements, right, that apply to any property, whatever the zoning is. If there is a watercourse running through the property, or if we are looking at a property that is on the coast of the Northumberland Strait, these rules apply, right, with like specific buffers of 15 to 30 meters, which under certain conditions can be reduced, which is different from a specific zoning that is being applied, as it used to be in a past draft, that there was, a shoreline zone which was applied to a number of developments along the coast of the Northumberland Strait. Now, we didn't ever have in any of the drafts, I believe, a specific zoning for inland water courses, but this is something else the speaker is bringing forward.
Okay, just want to be clear on what the difference is between the two, because we have said that on the coastal, because of the province pulling back from Coastal Protection Act and concerns here to do with the coast, that we were going to deal with that as a separate issue. It will become part of our plan, whatever, but that will be dealt with as a separate issue. But I understand what Mr. Morgan is talking about is mostly to do with inland waterways and the potential for
Yes.
some of the businesses he named being put in there. I think that's his concern. It's not so much with the coastal, which we are going to deal with later, but with the inland waterways. Am I clear on that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to get that clear. Are there questions of clarification for Mr. Morgan? No questions of clarification? Okay, thank you, Mr. Morgan, for bringing
Thank
these
you very much.
important issues forward. Okay, now, Mr. Morgan was the only one that registered for this public hearing tonight, but if there's somebody else here that wants to speak to our municipal planning strategy and bylaws, we can allow that, but you have to be from the municipality or have land in the municipality. It's not open for residents of the urban areas because we're only dealing with our own municipality here. But if you own land in the municipality, fine, you can go ahead and speak here tonight. So is there anybody in the audience? Mr. Marshall? Yes. Go ahead and speak. I know you live in the county.
I'm not familiar with this, so I hope it's turned on.
I think we can hear you all right, so.
This is okay. Okay, there's two questions. One is a question about what just was asked there about rivers and the distance. How many meters, I'm a little deaf at hearing, but how many meters from the river and what part of the river are we talking about? Because farmland should be exempt. Because if you got a lot of farmland that's bordering the river, you come within at least 50 meters of that to cut your hay. So let's get realistic at this thing. Is it from the center of the river? Is it from the edge of the river at high water? Or what's the distance to the meters? I'll leave that with you for a minute. The other reason I'm here, it's just because of the problem around churches and cemeteries. And for the ones that don't know me, my name is Albert Marshall, and we look after the Middle River Birch Hill Cemetery on the Middle River. Nothing to do with the river. It's to do with the property that's bordering us. It just has been sold, large piece of lot, right tight up to our cemetery, right tight up to the road goes into the church, and now they're selling lots of it. Is there any kind of reason why we don't have a rule that they can't have a garbage yard right beside the cemetery or the church road or anything that's not realistic? Should there not be a distance back from those places? And there's a lot of them in Pictou County, as you're all well aware, of the cemeteries and the churches are built right beside the rivers. And this is just an eye-opener for us. The people that bought this, the man that bought this piece of property, very nice man, there's not a problem, but he's got the lots for sale. That doesn't mean that some orangutan, as I'll call it, is going to get that piece of property. It's up for sale, and I mean, it's right there. It's right there beside the cemetery, and it's right there beside the church. So can we get something, a distance that no industrial use could be put very close? Let's say give us distance, whatever you would like, and then see what comes up later. But it's too late after this happens if it's not spoken about. And I think a lot of you realize there's one already in Pictou County, in the Western District of Pictou County, that's causing a lot of problems that nobody expected. So that's my take. And don't forget about the lands long, because I'll give you an instance on the rivers. We have at least 3,000 feet or whatever of river frontage that's bordering on, most is all farmland. And if we were kept back 100 meters or even 50 meters, that's a lot of farmland that's going to be lost. So just keep that in mind, and I thank you very much for your attention, folks.
Thank you. And I think what we're talking on the rivers is 15 meters, 50 feet. is what I heard for the rivers.
Okay.
50 feet back, I think, Albert, but I know from farming next to a river for a long time that, yeah, generally you farm right up to the edge of the river. You know, you're there with your plow, unless there's some bushes there, you go to the edge of the river. And on your other concern about the graveyards, I know the one in the western part of the county you're referring to, which has a lot of old junk vehicles sitting right in the former Salt Springs Church, Presbyterian churchyard, and there's an old bus got pulled in there, was within 3 feet or less of the cemetery. But they were able to buy the cemetery and buy the church, and so far I've been promised they're leaving, but I don't take that for truth until I see it happen. But and I have discussed that with our staff here as to how we, you know, whether our plan would prevent that. And I think perhaps they may have snuck in before time, but we're still hoping that they'll leave voluntarily on their own, as I've been promised. But if they don't, we have a major problem. And so you're right to question, you know, whether there's anything in this plan about graveyards, and I'm not so sure there is, but I would again ask Paul to address that for sure.
Yeah, maybe just to address the first question first, with regard setbacks for agriculture. So these setbacks from water courses, they are only related to development, right? So it's about buildings related to a farm, not about you know, whether you can cut hay close to a water course. But yeah, as for buildings, the water course buffer would be calculated from the ordinary high water mark of the water course, so from the edge
The ordinary
of
high
the
water mark. There is
Yeah.
a difference in the edge for sure in the summertime to the
Yeah.
springtime when the freshets are going through. But it is 50 feet or 15 meters, like you said.
15 meters, yeah.
Am I wrong?
And on the second question, yeah,
Can I just stop you 1 minute, Paul? Go ahead, Councilor Palmer.
If he's just making hay, he
Yeah,
can go up
he
to
can go right up the edge.
right up to the edge. It's
Yeah.
just when you build a
Build a
building.
building.
Yeah.
Most farmers aren't gonna
So-
build a building next to the river, so.
And it's whatever he's doing today, he can do tomorrow too, right? So it's,
Yeah, he'd be
So-
grandfathered in, is what you
Grandfathered in,
mean.
yeah.
But you can't build a building, under the new rules, you can't build a building, and like I say, I don't think most farmers would. But you can still cut your hay or grow your vegetables or whatever, right as close as you can get to the water. It's buildings that we're dealing with here, yeah. Okay, go ahead on the second part then, Will.
on the second question, no, that there are no such specific requirements with regard to how far away you would have to be from an institutional use for you know, next to a cemetery or anything like that. Because I think always the intent of this land use bylaw was this is the very
Be
first
light.
attempt, right, for the municipality to introduce land use planning. And we didn't want to make it too complicated, so there are no such requirements right now.
But we do have the ability in the future, am I right, to add something?
Absolutely, council is always at discretion, right, to change the bylaw any time.
So if not every issue comes up, of course, as we're doing the, I don't think it came up as we went to the public meetings. You fellows recall, anybody? I don't recall graveyards coming up, but doesn't mean that certainly in Salt Springs right now it's an issue, and in your area, Albert, it sounds like it certainly could be an issue. So it may be something that we can look at adding to the plan in the future. Okay, questions of clarification. Go ahead, Donnie Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think on this farmland, it's, I believe you can, like Councilor Palmer said, you can go right to the edge of the
Yeah.
river and still cut the hay. On the cemetery issue, which is in my district up in Salt Springs, they're pulling old junk cars into that church that was sold, the Presbyterian church, and nobody in the community wants that. So I think we need something in the bylaw to keep that from happening. There's a little cemetery in there, and he's got old junk cars all over the place. I think that needs to be added at some point.
When I spoke to Ian Watson, who was with us most of the time on the plan, when this started happening, he seemed to be of the thought that, that our plan could stop that. So we need clarification on whether they can or not. But they just got hauled in there about a month ago now, I think, and so we're waiting for clarification on whether, right now, he's agreed to take them out voluntarily. If that happens, then fine, but we need to make sure this can't happen in the future.
In the future is what
Yeah.
I mean, that's what could happen here over Middle River.
It's what could happen in the future, yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Warden. Just on junkyards, that's not a regulated junkyard. Nova Scotia Environment regulates junkyards, do they not?
When they get to a certain size, I
Certain
was
size.
told, yeah.
I always thought we had a policy for derelict vehicles, that you couldn't have vehicles in your yard if they weren't operational or if you weren't fixing them up to run. And I thought we had the power to go in and tell them that they had to remove them, or we'd go and do it for them, so.
I'd leave that to our
Because-
CAO to see if we do have something like that, because it's needed maybe, but on the other hand, other people run a business.
It's called unsightly, right?
Dangerous and
It's
unsightly.
Dangerous and unsightly, so.
And you have to get our bylaw officer to declare it dangerous and unsightly. It's not up to us councillors.
Because then it becomes an environmental issue. And that's why Nova Scotia Department of Environment looks after junkyards, because I have one in my area, and I know, because I've dealt with it for many years. But they're regulated under so gas has to be removed, the oil has to be removed, and all that stuff. If we have these situations in our county that aren't regulated, then they have oil in their vehicles, which could be going into groundwater and things like that, so I just thought we had that policy, so.
Do you have an answer for that, Mr. Collin? Do we have a policy? We have several of these in our area for sure.
Yeah, there's no specific derelict vehicle policy, but it would potentially fall under dangerous and unsightly to investigate and potentially issue a cleanup order or some order to remedy, which could be a fence, it could be, right? Whatever range of options there are, but there's no specific, you can't have derelict vehicles or a vehicle that doesn't operate in your yard.
And we did have the bylaw officer visit the churchyard in Salt Springs and said it didn't classify at this point anyway as dangerous and unsightly. So, we phoned the Environment Department before, and unless it's a certain size, they won't deal with it. And it has to be quite big before they'll deal with it. But we have had good luck dealing with some individuals, some in my district, with getting to build fences, so they block the view of the public. And various other things to try and cut down the offense to the community. But when it comes to the oil and the gas and all that stuff leaking into the ground and down to the waterways, the Department of Environment won't touch it until it gets to be, I forget the acreage or hectares or whatever, it has to be a certain size before they'll even come and visit. So it leaves a whole lot of these smaller ones sort of in no man's land. So I thank you, Albert, for bringing that forward, and it may be something that we can add in the future here. This is not a once and done issue. This is, we can keep changing this and adding to it. Go ahead, Councillor Donnie Parker.
I called Department of Environment over in Granton there, I was speaking to the gentleman there, and they were out twice. They measured the acreage. I don't know what's an acreage or hectares, but anyway, it's 0.14. It has to be over 0.25 to be considered a junkyard.
Over what?
0.25.
And what is it now, 0.14?
0.14 is what they have. They
Yeah, I knew there
measured-
was a
they
size.
measured it. If it's over 0.25, it's considered a junkyard. But I asked them about the oil and gas, because people have wells all around that. There's 3 houses and a church right across the road, and that's an issue. So, I mean, that's what the Department of Environment, I understood from our bylaw officer that there's not enough vehicles out in front of the church facing the road to be considered unsightly premises. But, I mean, they're all around the church, and I expect it'll expand, but we'll see. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other issues of clarification for Mr. Marshall on what he brought forward here to us this evening? Seeing none, I'm going to ask, oh, sorry, who did I miss? Go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have to bring this up because it was pointed out to me by a resident on Saturday, and I had emails today from 2 residents down home that they feel communication was not very well displayed for this whole process. They feel that the information didn't get out to them unless you sat on your phone or your computer and followed us on our social media, that they feel the notification that the information going out didn't give them time to properly assess what's happening with this whole land use planning. And I think we have to learn to do better. I think it's something this council has to look at, is getting the information out there that people depend on us to let them know and inform them. And people have their lives, and being on the social media is not working for them. So I really think council as a whole has got to look at that and find better ways of communicating what's going on here at council for them. And this was just one really bad example of people not being informed and feeling that we really left them out.
Thank you, and I think we can always do better, no matter what we're doing, but I think there was a lot of efforts made by our staff in here, not just on social media, but other efforts, whether it was on the radio or whatever. It may have been a poor timing of when to have the meetings, because the meetings were mostly in December, which is, people are busy with Christmas, and everything else gets put aside. Got to get a tree, got to get the gifts, everything, and so timing may have been an issue. We actually had the climate change meetings in January and did better in January, in terms of getting people out than we did in December. So, but I agree, we can always do better.
Well, I think getting the notifier this morning is what upset them.
Pardon me?
They feel they got the notifier this morning of the meeting tonight, and I think that was the first that they knew that this was going to happen. And I think that's what had them upset, that we have to find a better way to communicate the information.
Well, we have MOPC Alert, which we're working on getting people signed up for. We have to get people signed up in order to send it out, but it's very similar to the alerts you get on your phone and everything else. Over the last weekend, we learned some of that, but we have to get people signed up for it, and then we can send out to your area or any area in particular. We don't need to send it to everybody if it only applies to one, or we're going to send it to everybody. And I know taking that information around to our climate change meetings, the MOPC alert number of people that were signed up greatly increased. So, that's one way we can try to make people more aware, but it is very difficult in today's world of so many multi-ways of hearing about things or not hearing about them. At one time I ran a business, if I put it on the local radio station, 90% of the people heard it. Now you got people listen to 15 different radio stations if they listen to any at all. So it's much harder to reach out to people, but like I said before, we can always improve. Now, who did you say was missing?
Adam.
Adam, you want to go ahead and speak then? Adam's our communications officer, for those that don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we did advertise in both newspapers, on the website, in the e-newsletter, on social media, so it was well in advance. I just put out the MOPC alert this morning just to give people a final reminder. We're trying to figure out that balance of how much in advance do you do it, because then sometimes people forget about it happening. So I opted to do it this morning just to give that reminder so it was fresh in people's minds, but we can definitely look at when the best time for that is. But yeah.
But it wasn't the first time, so you're saying?
No, it's been well advertised for the last, I would say, since the first reading.
Okay, I'll let our CAO speak, and then I'll go to Mr. Conlon.
Yeah, there are statutory requirements that we have to meet, and we met those. So the statutory requirements is it has to be posted on our website, and it has to remain there for the duration until this hearing is held as well. And actually, that's the only one we have to do, or you can publish it in your paper circulating in your municipality. So we did both of those to meet the statutory requirements off the act as well. Notify the other statutory requirement of notification is all adjacent municipalities have to be notified. So the 10 or so municipalities that border us were all given notifications as well.
And I understand that was done, but it's just, as a council, I think we have to learn to do better to get this communication out there, whether the onus falls on the councillor to make sure she gets the information out in their area, or if it comes to council. But I think it's important that we communicate on a regular basis with our residents.
And I think the MOPC will help us with that. It won't be the answer to everything. People are very busy, and I miss things all the time, didn't even know that was going on. Well, it was on the social media or something, well, I'm not there much, or it was advertised here or there. I have my ratepayers meeting on Wednesday night. I'm sure that despite the fact I put some signs up and a few other things, that a lot of people will say, I didn't even know that was happening. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
No, I thought it was pretty well advertised, and I had the same couple of people said to me that they didn't know anything was going on, but I said to them, do you get the municipal newsletter? Because how many times was it in that? It was in a number of times over the years, so, and that goes to everybody's house, right? So I don't know how else you do it, but, you know, it was in the newsletter saying about these public meetings and things like that, so, you know, besides going door to door, you're always going to have people saying, I didn't know about it. That's the problem, right? And people got to make themselves, people talk in the community and things like that, so the word gets around, but I know some people are going to be missed, but I thought we did a pretty good job of social media. I thought Adam did an excellent job. So.
I think the concern here is specific to this hearing tonight, that it wasn't properly advertised.
We have to find a better way to communicate, but the concern was for what was happening with the land use tonight and how they were notified just this morning, so.
Okay, we'll move along, and is there anybody else that's here tonight that's a resident of the municipality that has an issue on this particular hearing to do with our municipal planning strategy, land use bylaws? Okay, I see no one at this time. We do have a couple that were sent in, concerns, and I'm just going to mention, I'm not going to read the whole letters, it would take too long, but one is Dr. Rayom, Dr. Dorian Rayom, and it's mostly about the shoreline protection. Again, the council went back and forth trying to find maybe a happy medium or find what works best for everybody. But this is to do with the Caribou Shores condominium just over the way here, and feeling that the coastal protection zones they're not well enough protected, and she's basically saying that because the province declined to bring in the regulations for the Coastal Protection Act, that we should be doing it. It's up to this municipality to decide whether to do it. And the province stepped away. They didn't say we have to do it. They said they're the better ones to do it. You may differ in opinion with that, like I do, but that's where we're at right now. So council will be, addressing the coastal concerns separately I hope over the next short period of time, and they will then, I would imagine, melt in with our planning strategy here. So that's just concerns, and there have been other concerns expressed along the way about the shoreline zone, about how much development do we want, how close to the water and everything. So that seemed like a big enough issue that we should be dealing with it perhaps separately. And the other one we received is from the town of New Glasgow. As you know, in the past, when we had secondary year, we had the public hearing, there was a presentation from the town of Glasgow, and it's mostly to do with the Forbes Lake watershed area and how much development should be allowed or shouldn't be allowed around that Forbes Lake watershed area. And there's a primary area and then a secondary area. And we have put quite a bit of additional restrictions on development around the primary watershed area, but not the same level of restrictions in the secondary area. And they still feel that we should, implement several more restrictions. I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but draft document to protect Forbes Lake watershed through land use controls. And they go into their arguments and reasons, but we have discussed this with with Upland, our advisors, and with others, and feel that we have provided adequate protection for not only the watershed for New Glasgow, but also Pictou's wells, and I believe it's Trenton's wells, and the Stellarton, of course, gets theirs from the East River. And we've discussed that before about how much protection and how far back, the river, East River is a big area if you're going to try and protect all that. So we, within reason, and I believe Councillor Dewar, maybe that's on the agenda for tonight, is going to be appointed to that watershed protection board or whatever for Stellarton. So I think we have addressed a lot of their issues, and we at some point have to say that's as much as far as we can go, I guess. So those two came in writing, and I believe that's the only two for this round. I don't know if there's nobody here to answer questions, but if there's any questions of clarification for either one of those. Councillor Dewar?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm still amazed that the town of New Glasgow don't want anybody having a hobby farm within so many kilometers of that lake. What would be the difference if some young fella or kids had half a dozen chickens and a rooster or a couple of saddle horses when they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of geese in the lake all the time? There's quite a difference between a little hobby farm with a couple of ponies or a horse or a goat. And they'll say, oh, well, that's not the kind of hobby farm they're talking about. Well, if it's written down that it's that kind of hobby farm, that's any animals. And I just, sometimes I think things get pulled out too far, or too much goes into it. But if we go along with that part of it, that could mean, like I just said, some kids in 4-H have goats or sheep or some chickens, or somebody has a few saddle horses around there. That will be classed as a hobby farm, and I just don't like to see that put in there, especially, like I said, and I did say it to the mayor and her associate there that night, that I often go by there and you can't see the water for the geese. So anyway, maybe we should have a grant or a feasibility study on how many geese are in there. Geese make an awful mess. Only if you have a half a dozen roaming around in your fields at home, or in, there's a lot of mess. So if hundreds and hundreds are in the water, they don't come off and go to the woods to go to the washroom. So anyway, I'm sticking up for the little fella that has a few animals there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Is there any other questions of clarification on the letter from the town of New Glasgow or from Dr. Riom? And please remember, we are going to have further sessions on coastal protection to decide where we're going as a council, and then to decide what rules, if any, that we want to put in place for that. So if there's no more comments this evening, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming. So, Councillor Boyles, because you weren't here for the president, you won't be able to vote on